What is going on, everyone? I have been absolutely bombarded with at least 5 requests to do more commentary videos, so I thought I would honour those requests and make a career mode playthrough. I got asked to do a career mode playthrough, but I can't really be asked to do a normal career mode playthrough, so I thought I'd do one with a twist. I've got to unlock the whole science tree without doing any manned flight, so it all has to be drones. Mainly for the challenge, but partly for the challenge, but mainly for the fact that I could call this series Game of Drones, because I thought that was a really funny name. But anyway, you can see me just collecting some science from around the KSP, trying not to do any sort of flights, because you don't get a drone core until you've got a little bit of science. I can't remember how much you need now, but you need a bit of science just to get the drone cores, so the rule is no manned flights, so as long as everything stays on the ground with the actual crewed missions, that counts. And as soon as we've got enough science to unlock the drone core, that's it for manned flights. We go full on drones. I'm just sort of, this bit's all in fast forward really, just sort of because it's not the most interesting content really, is it? But let's just skip ahead, and there we go. We've got the thing. We got the Sputnik. Stay Putnik. So it's based on the Sputnik, right? Is it Stay Putnik? I've done literally no research for this video. So we're going to go ahead and begin our adventure now. So we're going to quickly fast forward through the building process of this remarkable ship. I thought since we basically can't really do any sort of meaningful science with that tiny little flea booster, I thought I'd just try and build the most absurd rocket possible, because after this all the others are going to be quite sort of grounded in reality. So I thought I'd get it all out of my system with this absolutely ridiculous, very, very Kerbal Mark 1 rocket. So all the rockets just going to be numbers basically, and this is the Mark 1, so it's got lots of parachutes, a little bit of landing legs, and I'm not really expecting this to get very high. I'm putting 2 science units on because just in case it makes it to the upper atmosphere, we can do some scans from the upper atmosphere, but it's more than likely it won't get to the upper atmosphere. It'll just get to sort of the atmosphere, not the upper atmosphere, the lower atmosphere, that's the word I was looking for. And then when it lands in wherever, hopefully a mountain range or the grasslands, we can get some science on where we land. So it's all good. So you can see I'm just filling up with all the science tech we've got available to us, which is the thermometer and the science junior and the mystery goo, and we're going to go ahead and launch it, obviously, because it's not got a big flight plan. It's not got an SAS unit because we don't really need one, and we haven't unlocked one. And the Stay Putnik module doesn't actually have an SCS unit, or if it does, it's pretty it basically doesn't have one. Basically, it's completely useless. You can't really control a rocket unless you have an SCS unit with the Sputnik. Stay Putnik, I'm just going to call it Sputnik because that's basically what it's based on. You can tell this is a really scripted commentary, can't you? So yeah, we got our science, and now we're going to plummet back to Earth, plummet back to Kerbin, and you can see we've covered an enormous amount of distance, so we're going to get some very far away science, and there we go. Just collecting all the science we got. So binding everything to action groups here. I apologise that everything in this video is kind of sort of sped up really, because I get a silky smooth 7 FPS when I play Kerbal Space Program with Fraps running. My laptop is severely underpowered. I know one of my probably the most requested thing I have, apart from like various SSTOs, is a second series of Duna attacks. If you haven't seen it, you can go to my channel, and there's a playlist called Junior Attacks, and it's basically a 4-episode little series in which Junior attacks. But yeah, I don't want to do a second series until I get a new computer and can do all the special effects I want to do. So yes. But anyway, we are building up our second rocket. This time is just going to be sort of a normal shaped rocket. So the idea of this one is hopefully for it to get a little bit more height, but obviously it's going to be built like a normal rocket, so it's going to be streamlined, and so we need to put those big sort of girders on the top just for somewhere to mount the parachutes. And we've got just one solid rocket booster, which should be sufficient to get us into space. So we're going to be doing some science from the upper atmosphere this time, because we didn't get to the upper atmosphere before, and also from space near Kerbin. We don't have the Delta V in this particular rocket to get to space high above Kerbin, so we'll have to save that for the next flight. So we are. We probably should have turned down that. The thrust limiter of that solid rocket booster, because we're getting way too much speed way too early on in the atmosphere. So we wasted a lot of fuel fighting against the air, but it didn't really matter in the end, because at the end of the day we only needed to get to 70 kilometers, so I wasn't really too bothered about being efficient. And it's kind of weird, isn't it? We've kind of been docked almost with our booster. So here we are. We're just ascending up through the upper atmosphere. Now we're basically in space for all intents and purposes, and there we go, 70 kilometers. So we can do our science. So we can, that's it really, we can do our science. So here we go, just getting our Science Junior together, rerunning our experiments. We've actually got a few more mystery goo units and thermometers than we do Science Juniors, just because they're much lighter, so we can actually do some mystery goo collections from our landing position as well. So here we are, just plummeting back to Earth. I don't really think the heat shield was too necessary here because we're not going especially fast. So you can see almost no flames there at all. So, but this rocket will be the basis of our future model, so we may as well just get used to putting a heat shield on now, because I'll forget if I don't get used to it. So here we are, just coming down to a nice, gentle landing. The number of parachutes was probably a little bit overkill, but like I say, we don't need to worry about being too efficient at this point because we only needed to get to 70 kilometers. And we just got those 2 landing legs. Not that they're particularly necessary, but just in case I don't stop time warping soon enough, because I'm really impatient. They're just there to cushion the landing, and we can do a little bit more science on our landing spot. So let's check out how much science we've got. Look at all that. Look at all that science. We can actually start to unlock some more useful things now. So we've got our basic rocket parts and things, and now we can just sort of begin to expand our little repertoire of components, and we can try and get a little bit higher up this time. So this here is the Mark III rocket. So we're going to expand upon the fearless adventures of the Mark II, and we're going to try and get them into high space high above Kerbin was the phrase I was trying to find there. So it's very similar to the one before. We've got a little sort of landing launch pad sort of type setup there, although it's not really that necessary and didn't actually end up looking as good as I hoped. So we can just get rid of that. But yeah, here we go. We're launching the Mark II. So here we go. We're going to launch, and we're going to get to the upper atmosphere. And again, we just have more Science Junior units, although we already have Science Junior from the atmosphere, upper atmosphere, and space near Kerbin. It doesn't hurt to bring one with us because we can get some science from where we land. And although we need slightly more Delta V than we did before, it's still not really that important to be efficient, because at this stage we're literally only getting upward. We don't have to bother about circularizing into orbit, because you don't actually get any science advantages to being in an orbit as opposed to being on a crash course. Unstable orbit? Crash course. I don't know. So here we are, just ascending up through the upper atmosphere, and yeah, I was very excited about this. And it's very edgy. Will I make it? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, I will make it. Spoiler alert. But in a minute you'll see that I suddenly changed my mind as to where we want to go. I'm going to just tip over, because I realised that we've actually got most of the science from the biomes around KSC. So I thought I'd aim for that desert to the left of KSC. That's why we aim to the left, because we didn't really have much fuel to get to the continent to the right. And as you can see, my trajectory at the moment is going to land in the sea. But hopefully, if Kerbin rotates enough, we should end up landing in the desert, because the rotation of the planet is such that by the time we've got back from space high above Kerbin, wow, I need to work on my phrasing here, don't I? Once we get back from space high above Kerbin, we should be on a trajectory to land just onto the desert. It's going to be a bit of a close call, but we should have enough Delta V. If not, we can always just revert the flight and do that again with a little bit more planning. Maybe start doing not a gravity turn, but an anti-gravity turn. Is it just a gravity turn? I thought a gravity turn was just when you turn with the direction of the planet, because you get more Delta V. It's around 200 meters per second more Delta V by turning to the right. I can't remember exactly how many, but what I'm saying is irrelevant, of course, because as you can see, we've made it to that desert, so it all worked out okay in the end. So you can all relax. I can see you all get intense, especially you, Jimmy. I can see you get intense there. I say Jimmy because I'm hoping that at least one of you is called Jimmy, and then for a split second you would have freaked out and thought I could read your mind, but sadly I'm not that good, so yes. Okay, so now we can check out how much science we earned, and that actually gives us enough science to finally get rid of the Stay Putnik and get a better SAS module, not an SAS module, a drone core. So here we are, just sort of jump ahead of it to the vehicle assembly building. We can actually build it all into a service bay now, just to get maximum aerodynamic efficiencies. We can actually stick it all on that probe core there, and we can do that Looks a bit like a funny face, doesn't it, really? And we obviously stick some batteries there because this will be the first mission in which we attempt to enter another sphere of influence other than... Well, we'll still be in Kerbin's, but we're going to enter... We're going to fly by the moon is what I'm basically trying to say here, but it was really horribly phrased. So we are building it all into a service bay. So this kind of sort of setup of a service bay above 2 science juniors will be the mainstay of our rocket designs for the near future. We've got our vacuum module there for orbital maneuvers. We've got our main lifting stage with some winglets, and then we've got some solid rocket boosters to propel us up through the thicker part of the atmosphere. We can just turn down the thrust a bit to about in the 50s because we don't need too much thrust. Well, with 3 boosters like that, we're going to end up thrusting way too much, too low, and pick up way too much speed and start to overheat and waste all our energy on the lower atmosphere. So we may as well just turn the thing down. They'll last longer and it will get us more Delta V. I am going to start scripting these at some point as well because it's not very... yeah. Anyway, let's go. So we're ascending up now. It's great commentary. So as you can see, we don't actually have struts unlocked yet because I didn't unlock struts. So so we're just ascending now into the atmosphere, wobbling about a little bit, but there by and large isn't wasting too much energy, so I'm not too bothered about that little wobble. We're just going to very slowly build up speed, and we're going to start to tip over because of course this will be the first flight in which we achieve orbital velocity and try and orbit Kerbin. So we're going to start doing a gravity turn. For those of you who don't know, you want to try and gradually tip yourself over until you're going about 45 degrees by the time you get to 10 kilometers up. And it does look like I probably will slightly overshoot 10 kilometers by the 45 degree mark, but it's not really an exact science because I did actually pack slightly more Delta V than what will be required for a MUN flyby, just because I will probably mess something up. But here we go, just throttle up that engine. Yeah, since we're higher up into the atmosphere, we may as well just go to full thrust now. If you end up sort of thrusting too much in the lower atmosphere, you can end up again wasting too much fuel fighting the air. But past about the 220 kilometer mark even, you're pretty set. So the atmosphere is very thin. Unless you're going about 1,000 meters per second, it's not really going to make too much of a difference. I think I do accelerate a little bit here, and you can start to see those flames licking the side of the rocket. But by this point, we're going to pass through the upper atmosphere relatively quickly, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. And I want to try and keep this sort of grounded in reality, in that I don't want to ignite that engine too many times. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to keep on burning it like it's an SRB until it runs out, and then we'll do our circularization burn with that LV909, is it? I have no idea. The little engine, basically, the one with a really high ISP for orbital maneuvers in a vacuum. So it's not got very much thrust, but it's got a very high ISP, so it's very efficient, and it will be the engine we use for all our orbital maneuvers for a very long time until we get that nuclear engine. And even then, because this is all an unmanned series, most of the ships we'll be building will be very lightweight anyway, so I can't foresee many instances in which we'll need the nuclear engine unless we're going to be doing a lot of different landings with lots of Science Junior units. Depending on how lazy I am. Anyway, so we're going to get our MUN encounter here. Just focus on that there. And we're going to bring our periapsis nice and low. You need it sort of below 50. Below 50,000. I can't remember what units this game uses. Below, if it's got a number 5 at the beginning. Oh, what? I need to shut up, don't I? So here we go. We're just going to circularize here. Not a very big burn. And like I say, that engine's very efficient. So we should have more than enough fuel to get our MUN encounter. There we go. Just slowing right down now to try and get an accurate encounter. And as you can see, we'll actually end up in a polar orbit as well, so we might be able to get a nice new biome to pick up some science when we land as well, because I brought 4 mystery goo units, and we only need 2 for our MUN mission at this point, and we've already got all the science we can get from space above Kerbin. So we've got some nice mystery goo units to do some science where we land. In fact, 4 mystery goo units is actually too much, isn't it? Whatever, like I say, I've packed too much Delta V as it is, so we should be set. So here we are, just getting our MUN encounter here, and I think our periapsis is actually slightly too high to get science for space near the MUN, so we're just going to drop it down by burning anti-radial, and we're going to do some science from space high above the moon first. They're all bound to action groups, so we can do that nice and fast, and then we'll just sort of time warp to the periaps, and then we'll do some science here as well. So in terms of mods for this game, I'm trying to keep it completely stock. I thought about doing remote tech, since this is a kind of a drone drone series, I thought remote tech would be quite an appropriate mod to be using, but at the end of the day, I've always sort of prided myself on the fact that all my things are stock, because it makes the videos a bit more relatable, especially for new players who are just trying to get into the game. If they're trying to get into something like, say, Interstellar Quest or a series like that. Nothing against Scott Manley, obviously. I actually really liked the Interstellar Quest series. I just feel like it's not as relatable as, say, a completely stock game, because a new player could go and replicate all of my vessels and they would work flawlessly in their game. Well, not that they work flawlessly in mine, but you know, they'll work the same in their save as opposed to mine. And just like in mine, basically anyone can recreate the ships they see in my videos. That's basically why I use all stock parts. And remote tech I just feel a bit sort of daunting and a bit sort of alienating for a lot of new players and old players who've just never played with mods. So the only mods I'm using are Kerbal Engineer. That gives you the readouts at the top, just so you can see, for your sake really, and for mine, because it makes it a bit easier, especially when you're flying SSTOs. You can kind of see your readouts without having to go to the map view. You can see your apoapsis, periapsis, and the total delta V in your vessel, which is especially useful for SSTOs, not so much for multi-stage rockets, because it's the total delta V rather than what each stage has. And we're also using Kerbal Alarm Clock just because it makes things like warping to periaps and things way easier, because I'm really impatient, so I'll often overshoot my periaps because I'll just be too time warp happy. So that's a really good thing to have. And also obviously you can time transfer windows and set alarms for multiple vessels, because hopefully in the future for this series I'll have multiple missions running at once, so Kerbal Alarm Clock will allow me to sort of micromanage those missions without missing anything. And those are the only mods, and the other one obviously is camera tools. I probably won't use that for this series, but I use camera tools a lot for my videos. No one really needs them unless you're making videos, so just ignore the little camera tools icon. And there we go, just unlock some more things. So fuel systems is always good to have. It's really useful to have that fuel line, and I think it'll be also worth having struts as well. As we build more and more complex rockets, we'll probably need struts. And that brings an end to this episode. So next time you can look forward, I'm sure you'll look forward, to a Mun landing. So I hope you enjoyed this series, and if you didn't like it, then let me know, and I'll probably cry while I sleep.